Okay, hello everyone. Just want to give you some quick refreshers on different ways to write an equation of a line. You should have already taken care of the two explorations, which kind of walked you through and reminded you of a couple of things. The first thing that it should have reminded you of what is a y-intercept, and also what is the slope of the line, and how does the slope and y-intercept relate to an equation. And so what I'm going to show you is three different ways to write the equation of a line. Ultimately, all three of these are going to lead us to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, something you should be very familiar with. B is our y-intercept. It's not a very good B, is it? Okay, B is our y-intercept, and m is the slope of our line. Okay, so this is the form we always want our linear equations to end up with, because that's the form that we use to graph. Okay, so first method to write equation of a line. If I give you m and the y-intercept, so this is our slope m and this is our y-intercept b, you just take those two numbers and you plug the slope here and you put the y-intercept right there. However, sometimes you're not always given the slope and the y-intercept. It's not always that easy. Sometimes you're given the slope of the line, which could be the rate of increase, other words that are the same as slope, and you're given a point that's on the line. So what you have to do is you have to use this formula right here. So it's called the point slope form. And you may have seen this, you may not have, but I'm going to cover it just so that we're all on the same page. All right, and the point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Okay, m is your slope. Okay, x1 and y1 are the two coordinates that are given to you for the point. So whatever this number is right here, you'd plug it in there. And whatever this number is here, you plug it in right there. Now, the important thing is if you ever start out with this form's not very useful. And so what we want you to do is we want you to manipulate this form. So manipulate to, let's say this, get y equals mx plus b. So you're going to have to do a little bit of number crunching so that you start with this and then you do that. Okay, so that's what happens. So this is the form you use if I ever give you a slope and a point. Now what do you do if I just give you 2 points and I say find the equation of the line that goes through those 2 points? So this is really a two-step process. So what do we need? We know we need slope first of all. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the slope. And if you remember, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? So we use that to find the slope, and then once we have the slope and a point, and we use the point slope formula. And that's from above here. Okay, so these are the three different ways to write an equation of a line. Ultimately, remember, we always want to end up with this form right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next page, which has some examples. All right. So if I look at this example here, so use the graph below to write the equation of a line and intercept the slope. So I want to write this in slope-intercept form. So looking at this cell phone costs right here, you got to look at what's given to you. And the first thing that you should notice, if you notice this point right here, 0.50, notice it's on the axis. That's your y-intercept. So what that tells me is that my y-intercept of b has a value of 50. Awesome. So now if I could very simply figure out the slope, I'd be in good shape. So I have the y-intercept, I need the slope. So how do we find slope? We go y2 minus y1. So y2 is going to be 51 minus 50. So we do that over x2, which is 10 minus 0. Okay. Now, why did I go 51 minus 50 and 10 minus 0? because I chose to. I could have gone 50 minus 51, but then I would have had to go 0 minus 10. So you got to be consistent in your direction. Okay, so let's see what we get. We get 1 on top, we get 10 on the bottom. So there's my slope, 1/10. Okay? All right, so if we put this in slope-intercept form, we have an answer of y equals 1/10 x plus 50. So there's the equation of the line, which is what we wanted to do up here. Now, whoops, you guys can't see that. There, how's that, better? Sorry. All right, now let's interpret that. What does that mean? So here's what that means. See this y-intercept of 50 and the 50 up here on the graph? That's your base cost. That means if you send 0 text messages, you're still paying $50 a month. So if you want to talk about the base rate of the plan, so we can say the base plan is $50. Okay, because think about your cell phone bill. You got a base rate. Okay. Now, some cell phone plans, you actually they charge you by the minute or by the text message. In this case, they're charging you by the text message, and that's where the slope comes in, because that's your what we call a variable rate. Okay. For each text message, you get charged 1/10 of a dollar. Well, what's 1/10 of a dollar? It's 10 cents. So text messages are 10 cents each. So that's what we mean. We want to interpret what the graph means, interpret what the equation means. Okay? Questions on that one? Oh, you can't ask questions. It's a video. Never mind. All right, let's look at the next one. So let's look at your math homework grade. Here, we want to first create the equation, but if you notice what's given to me, I'm given 2 points. So I know I'm going to have to use the point slope form to come up with the equation. Since I don't have the slope, I first have to figure that out. So I'm going to find the slope. So I'm going to go y2 minus y1, which is 95 minus 85, over x2, 20 over 10. Oops, 20. Excuse me, over 20 minus 10, excuse me. All right, what do I get? I get 10 on top, I get 10 on bottom. We can reduce that fraction. And we get a slope of 1. Okay, cool. Now, you might think you're able to use that right there as an intercept. You can't do that because you don't know if that's 78, you don't know if it's 79. You don't know which one it is. So what you have to do then is you have to use the point slope formula, as I mentioned up here. You need to pick one of these points for y2 and y1. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm going to choose that point right there. So I'm going to use 1085, and this is going to be x1, y1. And so what I want to do then is use my point slope form, so it's going to be y minus y1, which is 85, y minus 85, equals my slope, which is 1, times x minus 10. And now we got to do a little manipulation. So the first thing we need to do is to distribute that 1. Excuse me. So I get y minus 85. Distribute the 1. Still get x minus 10. And then what you need to do to solve it, we add 85 to both sides. And we get y equals 1x plus, 75. Ooh, I'm on the struggle bus a little bit. All right. So there's our equation right there. Now, what does that mean if we interpret it? It means that every assignment, okay, that we turn in increases our grade by 1%, because here's our variable. So every assignment. Can't see that, can you? Increases. Boy, we are all over the place. Increases your grade 1%. All right. Questions on that portion of it? Once again, you can't ask questions. It's a video. Oh boy. All right, let's look at example 2 and then let's put this bad boy away. All right, so what do we got here? We got the cost of parking lot. So in Chicago is represented by this equation. So this is the Chicago cost right there. And let's see here. The table shows the total cost. Park in Denver is right here. So this is the rates for Denver. 2 hours they charge 43, 3 hours 51, 4 hours 59, 5 hours 67. They want you to compare the two costs. So which city's parking garage charges more per hour and by how much more? Well, here's what we know. What we know about Chicago. We know Chicago, if you look at this, this is your variable rate. So your variable rate would be $15 per hour. So we know Chicago charges $15 per hour. We know in Chicago, you got a flat fee of $20. You're going to pay $20 the second you pull in, and then as you pull out, you'll pay your $15 an hour. We want to create an equation for Denver. So how do we do it? Well, we got to use point slope form. So y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And so the first step here, let's get our slope. Now when I find the slope here, I'm going to use the two farthest points away. That's usually your best idea. So 67 minus 43 over 5 minus 2. 67 over 40, or 67 minus 43 is going to be 24. And 5 minus 2 is 3, so we get a slope of 8. If I want to find the equation now, for step 2, I'm going to go y minus, doesn't matter which of these points you pick, I'm going to choose this point right here. So y minus 43 equals 8 times x minus 2. I have to do the distributive property with that 8. Y minus 43 equals 8x minus 16. And then we add 43 to both sides. And we get y equals 8x, what's 43 minus 16? 27. Okay? Now, what does this mean? That means that Denver charges a flat rate of 27, and they charge $8 an hour on top of it. So if we ask which city's parking garage charges more per hour and how much more, well, here's what we know. We know Chicago charges $15 an hour based off of their slope of 15, that variable rate. And we know Denver charges $8 an hour based on their slope of 8. That's your variable rate. So the obvious answer here is Chicago charges $7 an hour more. $7 an hour more. All right, here's a good question. After how many hours would the parking lot cost the same for both cities? So here's how I'd do that one. I'd pull out your graphing calculator. And you could plug and chug numbers if you wanted to, but what I would do is I would take each of those equations and I'd put them in here. So if I take this equation, 15x plus 20, 15x plus 20, put it in the y1, and then in y2 I'd take that second equation, 8x plus 27, and then I'd go over to my table and I would compare the rates, and Look at right there. X, what is X? X is hours. Notice it's 35 bucks here and $35 there. That means after 1 hour, they charge the same amount of money. So, to answer that question, after how many hours would parking in both cities cost the same? 1 hour. 1, whoo, H-O-U-R, 1 hour. Okay, I'm not going to ask if anybody has any questions for this one because it's a video. Check in with me tomorrow and see if you have any questions. And go on to the next one.